Hello and welcome to the Belief Week Masterclass, take 2. Sorry, I just had a little technical hitch to start with, but we should be right now, we should be on track. So let me start again by acknowledging that I'm broadcasting live tonight from the lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people in central Victoria to pay my respects to their elders past and present, to any Aboriginal people listening tonight, and to First Nations people all over the world. I want to kick off tonight by talking for about 15-20 minutes about beliefs, about why beliefs cause us so many problems, so many issues, and to explore what we can do about it from a mindfulness point of view. And there'll be plenty of time, as always, for questions from you guys, and so I look forward to hearing those and to you making me think a little differently about this stuff. So I want to start with beliefs and why beliefs always cause us problems, why beliefs always clash with reality. And there's a couple of simple reasons for that. And when I say beliefs always cause us problems, people will usually tell me that, well, beliefs don't always cause me problems. I like my beliefs. I want to hang on to my beliefs. I want to keep those close to my heart. Some of them are helpful. Some of them are very useful in my life. But when we dig down a little bit, we always see that life and beliefs are incompatible if we look at it closely. And there's a really good reason for this. Life and beliefs are incompatible because beliefs are a thinking process. Beliefs are about analysing something. They're about looking back into the past, about exploring into the future. Beliefs are always rooted in time. And thinking is always behind the 8 ball. It's always behind life. You can never think in real time. Because as soon as you think about something, it's got to be finished. It's got to be done before you can think about it. And to experience something fully, to experience life as it is, you have to experience it right now in real time. Otherwise, it's not life. It's a memory or it's a projection. So, thinking is always behind. The other thing about beliefs, the reason they always clash with reality, is that it's a particular point of view. It's a snapshot of one particular perspective of events. So we could take an example like what happened yesterday. We can talk about what happened yesterday. Now, if I talk about what happened yesterday and you talk about what happened yesterday, we're going to have very different points of view. And I'm going to believe that I'm right. You're going to believe that you're right. And we're both right, we're both wrong. There's no real truth. Everything's just a perspective. So when we take a point of view and we cling to it as we do with beliefs, then we get conflict, we get stress, we get upset, and we get problems in life. It's pretty simple. So what do we do about beliefs? Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to talk about this stuff for a little bit longer because I'm thinking your mind is going to be telling you that, wow, that's not totally true about beliefs. Some of them are right, or some of them are valid, some of them are helpful. And I don't want to try and get rid of beliefs tonight. I don't want you to think that you need to do something to get rid of anything or do anything about those beliefs. All I want to do is invite you to try living life differently through awareness. So that's what we'll look at. So when we explore beliefs, we can see that we're always behind the 8 ball because life happens in real time and thinking happens in the past. It's always thinking about the past. So when you try and experience life exactly as it is, beliefs can't help you. Beliefs can't take you to that place. So beliefs are always just thoughts that we cling to, they're stories that we cling to, and they always distract us from experiencing reality as it is. And that's our one aim or goal in mindfulness, if we have a goal, is to experience reality, experience life right now, exactly as it is. So if I'm sitting here breathing and say my body's having trouble breathing, maybe I've got some asthma or I've got something going on, all I want to do is to sit here and experience that exactly as it is. That's my only goal with mindfulness. Now, I might still take some action because I'm having trouble breathing. I might still take my medication, or I might go to hospital, or I might take some other action. But my goal with mindfulness is to fully experience it and then take action. If I have a belief that this is a problem, that I shouldn't be having difficulty breathing, that I should be able to breathe easy, or that I should have done something different with my life, this is where we start to run into problems. We start to run into difficulties. Because as soon as we have beliefs that they're always shoulds and coulds and woulds, when we have those kinds of beliefs, then we're always looking for something that's not here, or we're looking for what should be here. And that gap between what is and what my mind says should be is where all suffering, all pain, all anxiety and all fear comes from. It's from that gap. It's not life that's doing it. It's not even your beliefs that are doing it. It's the fact that you're lost in those beliefs, that you believe them to be true, you cling to them, and when you're lost in them and there's a gap between what those thoughts say, what those beliefs say, and the way the outside world looks, or even the inside world looks, then there's pain. So there's always a gap between our beliefs about what should be happening and reality. It's very, very rare that reality conforms exactly to what you believe should be happening. If that's not right in your experience, please let me know. But there's always, in my experience, there's always this gap between what my mind says should be happening and what's actually happening. So those beliefs, when I get lost in them, they cause me enormous amounts of stress and frustration and anger because I'm wanting something other than what is. And I know from my own experience that the one guaranteed way to have stress is to want something other than what is. And the one way to have guaranteed peace is to allow everything to be as it is right now, and then to take action as best you can to improve it. That might sound like a contradiction, but they really go together beautifully, those two things. So that there's that gap there between belief and reality. The second thing is that it brings us into conflict with other people, because your point of view and my point of view are different because we're looking from different places. We've got different conditioning, which is the foundation of all belief. It's what your parents told you, what your grandparents told them. It's what the society, the culture that you've grown up in has told you. All of those things condition you to believe certain things. Not that you have to believe them, but all your beliefs are in some way influenced by those things. Even if you believe the opposite of what your parents said, you're still influenced by what they said because you're going the other way, you're opposing it. So your point of view and my point of view are going to be different. So if I'm born on one side of the world, I'm going to say that this certain religion is the only way to find true peace, the only way to find God, and you're going to say a different one that's probably pretty similar when we break it down, but because we have different beliefs, we're going to clash. We're going to go into conflict with each other. And that's an example that we can all probably relate to, but there's simple examples that happen every day. So my wife believes that things should be put in certain places, that pencils should go in this container, that toy cars should go in this box, and I believe that it's more important to focus on other things, let's say. I don't mind putting the cars in the box if I know where they go, but that our two beliefs, if we clung to them and stuck to them, we could have a hell of an argument about something as simple as where the cars go or where the pencils should be. And those kinds of examples are what drives all relationship breakdowns, I would say, are beliefs. So someone believes that their partner should be a certain way or do certain things or act a certain way or talk to them a certain way or not do a whole lot of certain things. And because they believe that, when the partner does the opposite or something different, then there's tension, then there's frustration, then there's anger. All that's happening is a clash of beliefs. You two don't actually dislike each other because you haven't met each other. It's just two sets of beliefs meeting. And when our two sets of beliefs fit together pretty nicely most of the time, usually we call those people friends or husbands or wives or partners maybe. And when those two sets of beliefs clash, and they're often poles apart, then we call those people someone we don't like, or enemies, or, well, probably no one uses the word enemies in their day-to-day life, but you have different names for those people, let's just say. So with everyone, you'll have a clash of beliefs at some point. You will never meet someone who has the exact same beliefs as you about absolutely everything. And when we start in relationships, we often kind of cover up our beliefs, or in friendships, we might kind of hide them a little bit because we want the other person to like us. And then at some point down the line, you got to put your cards on the table, and the other person's going to find out, and you're going to find out that actually their beliefs and your beliefs don't match up. Now, this can be a problem if you cling to your beliefs. If you don't cling to your beliefs, then none of this makes any difference, because you can just enjoy spending the present moment together, having fun, and enjoying each other's company. There's no problem in it. The only problem comes when you cling to those beliefs. So I want to move into the second part of our session tonight, which is, what do you do with those beliefs? How do we deal with those beliefs when things are so, or when they can cause so much difficulty for us? And you might think from what I'm saying tonight that maybe you shouldn't have any beliefs if you're practicing mindfulness, or you should try and change your beliefs or make your beliefs fit with others. But we don't need to do any of that. We don't need to do anything with our beliefs. And that's the beautiful thing about mindfulness, is we don't have to do anything with anything. We don't have to change anything. We don't have to improve anything. We don't have to do anything except shift our attention. So all we're doing is shifting our attention from being lost in those thoughts and beliefs and going around and around and around in that washing machine. We're just shifting our attention to this present moment, to paying attention to the breath, to the body, to noticing what's actually happening as opposed to what I think it means. Because that's what the mind is concerned with. The mind's not concerned with what's actually happening now. The mind is concerned with, what does this mean for me? What does what you're saying or doing or not doing, what does it say about me? What does it mean for me, for my future? So, question from Janet. So I shouldn't cling to the belief that my partner shouldn't cling to his beliefs. I love that. Because you've nailed it absolutely, Janet. When you believe that he shouldn't cling to his beliefs, then you're the only one clinging in there. He might be clinging, but his clinging is really a story that you're telling yourself. You don't know if it's true or not, really. If you question that story, do you know that he's clinging to his beliefs? I mean, how would you know that? How would you know what's going on inside someone's head? They might be pretending to cling to a belief. There could be all sorts of things happening. So there's no need to cling to any beliefs. And there's no need to try and let go of them either, though. That's the beautiful thing about mindfulness. You don't need to let go of them. Because as soon as you're trying to let go of them, that's coming from a different motivation. There's a new goal that's arisen. I need to get rid of this belief. I need to change this belief. I need to let go of this belief. So as soon as you grab onto that, that's a new belief. So instead of trying to change beliefs, trying to get rid of beliefs, let's instead have a play with just shifting your attention into the present moment. So if you take your attention now to your feet, let's say, and just feel your feet. You're probably sitting down listening to this. So just feel your feet against the floor and notice what that feels like. Just sense your body against the chair. Feel yourself breathing. Just start to experience those sensations exactly as they are. Now, if we do that, with some intensity, we're already going beyond beliefs. We're already just stepping out of them. Because if we're here, if we're sensing the body, we're feeling the breath, those beliefs, those thoughts can come. But if we stay in this place, we don't need to react to them. We don't need to follow them. We don't need to do anything with them. We can just sit and we can just experience those beliefs whizzing past as just another part of reality, another part of this moment. So as we continue the session, just keep coming back to your breath, because your mind is going to tell you stuff about what I'm saying. Some of it it's going to say it's not true. Some of it's going to say, oh yes, I believe that too. But let's not get lost in belief. Let's pay attention to experience instead. So we want to shift from belief, from thinking, to direct experience. So what does this moment feel like? What does this moment taste like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What is your experience right now? That is key. That's the only key. So we don't want to create a whole new set of beliefs, because sometimes when people come to meditation or mindfulness, they start running around the streets, and I've done this too, spouting a whole lot of other beliefs like a belief that everyone should practice mindfulness. Well, should they? I don't know. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. You should practice mindfulness, people tell each other. People tell their friends. My husband should practice mindfulness. Everyone tells me that. But the reality is, if you're practicing mindfulness, well, that's what you should be doing. If your friend's not, if they're practicing knitting or macrame or heavy drinking, smoking lifestyle, then that's what they should be doing. That's their path at the moment. When we have that belief, then we get lost in this world inside our heads that has no connection to reality. It's got some connection, but it's not reality as it is. And when we get lost in that world, then we can't have that direct experience. We can't directly connect with other people. So let's not try and challenge those beliefs or change them. Let's just keep stepping out of them by stepping into the present moment. That's as simple as it gets. So come back to your breath again now. Just feel, what's it like as your chest expands and as your chest contracts? What does that feel like? What do you see when you look around the room or look around where you are now without judging things or without getting lost in the mind's judgments? But just look and notice colours, shapes, light, shade. If you do that without getting lost in your thoughts, you'll notice things that you've never seen. Even if you're sitting in your bedroom, you'll notice cracks in the wall that you never noticed. You'll notice cobwebs that weren't there last time you looked. Life's constantly changing. And when we're lost in our heads and lost in beliefs, we can't keep up. We can't take it in. We can't take it all in anyway. But when you bring yourself back out of thinking, out of belief, into the present moment, over and over again, because you've got to do it over and over again, because the thoughts, the beliefs are seductive. They'll keep luring you back. They'll keep dragging you back into the past, into the future, into what should or shouldn't be happening. But when you keep coming back again and again and again, then all of a sudden those beliefs start to kind of drift away, or they start to loosen by themselves. And what people tell me in classes often is that they're worried that without those beliefs, they'll lose their moral foundation, or they'll become savages, or some anarchy will descend on the earth, or some terrible things will happen. My experience is quite the opposite, is that the more lost in beliefs people are, the more savage things become. And we can see examples of that on a huge scale in human history. You look at things like Nazism and fascism and communism and most of the isms, where people have got completely lost, completely caught up in a belief system, and the belief is always about what's going to happen in the future if we follow these steps. And what happens then is that what you do now becomes justifiable because there's a belief in a greater good in the future. And those are all examples of that I've mentioned. But we can all do that in our own lives on a smaller scale. Not to say that we're behaving in that way, but we can have similar attitudes when we get totally lost in our beliefs. So when people think when we think, or our mind tells us we're going to lose our moral foundation, or we're going to become savage and awful people, it's just not the case. It's just not going to happen. What happens as you start to become more present, your beliefs start to loosen themselves off, and you become much more open and curious with situations that would have sat way outside of your beliefs. So an example for me is that I was brought up to be in a particular kind of way of thinking politically, pretty left-wing in Australia, and I was brought up to believe in that way. So when I was a little bit younger, before I started practicing mindfulness, whenever I saw someone on TV or in the newspaper who had a different point of view, I would start to my heart would start to race. I'd start to feel anxious and angry, and all these stories would start flowing through my head about what they were saying, what they were doing, and all this kind of stuff. And it took up a lot of my time and attention. I used to write letters to the newspapers and, all this kind of stuff that I don't bother with so much anymore. And the other thing that happened was I would look for this stuff. So I'd be looking through the newspaper kind of for examples of people who thought differently. So, the letters to the editor page, I'd always read that and then I'd get really indignant and frustrated. Now when I see or hear, or I'm friends with people who have very different political ideas, I can see that they're just expressing the thought that's going through their head in that moment. And because I'm not so caught up in my thought most of the time, or not so caught up in the thought that's passing through my head, then I can actually have a conversation with that person, and I can stay calm, peaceful, content, happy, and I can let them be in charge of their own life. I don't have to try and manipulate their thinking or try and get into their head and change the way they see the world. I can just accept that that's the way they see the world, and I see the world differently. We can have a nice conversation, and then I can go on my way. So the benefit for me, apart from obviously that improves relationships, but the real benefit for me is that the energy that I used to spend on trying to convert people and convince people and argue with people and all that other stuff, I can now spend on just being aware, being awake, and just noticing. So I can spend more of my time and energy noticing what is, noticing how wonderful this moment is, than I do trying to convince someone else that they should think differently, trying to convert someone else to my way of thinking, or trying to point out why their way of thinking is wrong. So it's incredibly freeing. So the other thing in the work that I do, I work with a lot of families who've got some problems going on, and I see lots of people who I work with who can't or have real trouble getting past their own beliefs when they're working with families about what people should or shouldn't be doing, what choices they should or shouldn't make. When I work in those same situations, I'm able to be really open, interested, curious, non-judging, and just be with those people and be really compassionate and caring and behave the way I'd like to, because I'm not attached to those beliefs. Don't get me wrong, they still come up for me. Those beliefs still come up, and sometimes I still get lost in them, but things are so much easier, so much less stressful, so much more peaceful, relaxing, and calm, because I can just live my life, let everyone else live theirs, and I don't need to change anything. The other thing about beliefs that's really interesting is that when we're lost in beliefs, especially beliefs about what should or shouldn't be happening, we put a whole lot of our energy into what Byron Katie calls arguing with reality, or arguing with what is. So we spend a whole lot of time thinking about, telling stories about why this moment should be different than it is. And when we do that, we're wasting a whole lot of energy, for starters. We're creating a whole lot of stress for ourselves. And as I said early on, all stress comes from that. So whenever we've got those shoulds getting in the way, whenever we're in that argument with reality, we waste a lot of energy, and the net effect is that we stop taking action most of the time. So the angriest people usually take the least action. The most upset and frustrated people usually take the least action, or the least effective action, if they're taking action. And that's a big blanket statement, so it's not always true. Of course, nothing is. But the majority of the time, most people who are angry, frustrated, irritated, who are complaining, they don't do much about it. Mostly. Most of the people who do stuff, people who can stay calm, look at a situation and say, okay, here's something that could be improved. What could I do to improve it? So they don't waste energy on what you should be doing, or what I should be doing, what the other person should be doing, on all that belief stuff. They just focus on, okay, this is how it is right now, and this is where I think it could get to, and this is what I'm going to do about it. So you can become a lot more active, a lot more helpful in this world when you start to drop those beliefs, or when those beliefs start to drop you. So I want to tie up tonight's class in a moment, and I just want to summarize some of the key points. I know we've covered a lot of ground in half an hour, but you can come back and listen to this anytime. So I just want to summarize the key points. So the key points that I wanted to touch on tonight are that we don't need to change beliefs. We don't need to get rid of them. We can just make the shift from thinking, from time, to awareness, to direct experience. So we can go from thinking about what's happening, believing something about it, to just experiencing it. When we do that, that's a fundamental shift. When we do that, then we can see that it's just a point of view, that beliefs aren't the truth, that they're not necessarily right, they're just conditioned ways of thinking, and that it's just a thought passing through my head right now. I don't need to act on it, follow it, challenge it. I can just watch it drift past, and I can just come back to breath, to body, to awareness. So that's the key points for tonight. It's really one key point is whenever you get lost in a thought, bring yourself back to the present moment. If you're listening tonight and you're not a subscriber to A Little Peace and Quiet, you can have a look around. There's some public podcasts. You can grab some resources. Janet, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I'll stay on the chat for a few more minutes, just in case you've got any questions. And Janet and other subscribers, you'll be getting a mini class in your inbox tomorrow morning, my time, as usual, as we continue Belief Week. Thanks for joining me, and good night. Well, it's night time where I am. Whatever time it is where you are. Good night.